Good afternoon everybody and welcome back to my channel. So firstly I wanted to start off by saying thank you to everyone who's been subscribing, commenting and liking. This week we managed to reach a massive milestone of 100 subscribers, and this might be quite small to most of you, but for me it's massive because it's just a start and I'm always trying to set them little goals, and of course 100 subscribers on my YouTube channel is great. I also released a new video this week. It was slightly different to my normal videos. It was called The Power of the Mind, My FTMO Journey, and basically it was all about the power of psychology and how over the last 6 months I've developed my psychology to reach new levels. So I'm going to leave a link to that video in the description below. I hope you enjoy the video, and hopefully it sort of teaches you a few things about how I've helped myself to develop, and hopefully it helps you to develop. So I'm going to start off this week's video, my normal watch list, by going through some obviously currency pairs, my indicators, so oil, gold and the dollar index, and then also going to go through some of the news events now. So firstly, on Monday we do have a bank holiday in Canada, so therefore we might see the CAD being a little bit quiet, but because of the other countries aren't on their bank holidays, we could also see volatility from the other side. So then Tuesday we have Fed Chair Jerome Powell testifying. So basically what this is a speech about coronavirus, about aid, and different various topics around this, I believe. So with this could be high impact because of the start of it will be a pre-written text or pre-written speech, and then after he will start going into a Q&A session, which obviously he could be asked some questions that could cause some volatility, especially with some of course not being able to sort of pre-write some of the answers. He might end up slipping up on something or saying something, we never know. So then Wednesday we have the Bank of England Governor Bailey speaking, so we'll be speaking about obviously monetary policy and different topics around that, of course the interest rate, and I'm sure many of you have noticed that your banks might have lowered your interest rate lately as they're trying to increase consumption, but of course, if you lower the interest rate, you're trying to increase consumption at a time where not many people can consume because they're either furloughed or businesses aren't open. Then Thursday, we've got the RBA, which is the Royal Bank of Australia Lowe, Governor Lowe. He's having a speech on Thursday, so that could cause some volatility, talking about monetary policy as well, and different topics like that. Then on Thursday we have some bank holidays, so we have the Swiss franc bank holiday, Euro, French and German bank holiday, of course Germany being a major powerhouse within Europe and therefore they do lead the news in terms of the countries. Then we have pound flash services PMI, and then we have US dollar flash manufacturing PMI. We have the USD Fed Chair Powell speaking once again on Thursday, so it'll be interesting to see how he differs between them two speeches, and if he sort of goes on to anything that he might have missed out on Tuesday. Then on Friday we've got retail sales for the pound, we've got the French flash services PMI, we've got the German flash manufacturing PMI, and then we've got German flash services PMI, so some heavy news for the euro. But apart from that, there's not actually too much this week. We had a lot more going on last week. We had some really big figures last week, which caused a few shocks, which may lead to some sort of forecasting being a little bit different this week based on them big numbers. But let's jump into the video and let's go into the watch list. So guys, starting off with, I want to start off with two of the trades that I took last week, or sort of one of the trades that I took and one of them that I left in. I did end up having a minus 2% week. It's not a problem for me, it's just part of learning. It was my first week on the funded account, but of course I've got another 3 weeks to go. The markets have been very choppy, so just a little bit of advice. Just make sure you're preparing, make sure you're setting them alerts and don't look at the charts otherwise. And if you are managing trades, have certain levels that you want to set your price alerts at. So for example, your entry, your stop loss, your take profit, different areas of take profit. I normally set one at 1%, so that's when I move my stop loss to break even, but what I found was I might get stopped out for 1% on a trade, and then another trade I'd let sort of move it to break even at 1%, and then I'd get stopped out for sort of break even, leaving me in a loss. So just be a bit wary, and the markets are a bit choppy, but hopefully with some really high probability moves this week we can get some really good moves. So GBP/JPY, as you can see, we had a 4-hour RBO with sort of a long-term daily continuation. So you can see here we had the 4-hour counter trend line. We broke the we come up to the 50% fib. We had this sort of evening star formation. Then we come back, formed sort of this double triple top, broke through the trend line. Then we come down, made this new low, retraced, and I also got a scale in here, I believe. We retraced to this key level. Then we come down again. Then we retrace again, a little bit higher than probably anticipated, but we was a bit overextended from the 4-hour 50 EMA. And then we've now impulsively broke down near to my target of the minus 27%. So this was just say a 4-hour target. I would potentially be targeting a lot further on the higher time frames. So with this, we have sort of what I'm expecting is once we reach this level, I'm hoping, because we're going to confirm a new low here, most likely a new lower low, I'm expecting us to then retrace to form a new lower high, on sort of this area here, so just between the start of the previous trend and this low here, and then hopefully from there we'll have, say, as you can see here, we've got this sort of 61.8% that lines up quite nicely with sort of this forecasting, and then hopefully reverse from here and then come to the downside, and then of course we have our targets down here. And if I just go on the daily, you can see we have got a lot of potential here. And another trade that I'm currently in is CAD Swiss. So as you can see, just on the daily, it looks really nice, head and shoulders. On the 4 hour, we have this head and shoulders breaking through the original trend line. We then make sort of the head, then come down, counter trend line, right shoulder, we've broken through, confirmed a new low, and now we've retraced to the 50%, just sort of reversed on that 4 hour 50 EMA, and then we've come back through and now we're just equaling the previous low. So potentially make a new low here if this continues, and then retrace to sort of the 0.68768, and then we can look for a scaling. So that's another trade that I'm currently breaking even on that one just before the weekend. So let's get into sort of the pairs and some of the indicators. So starting off with the DXY dollar index, once again it's just sort of a bit strange lately. We are seeing sort of these higher lows and higher highs being formed, but of course the higher high at the moment, we're not sort of breaking above it. We had that gravestone doji last month, and at the moment we're just sort of testing the highs. Of course we're sort of only halfway through the month, just over halfway through the month, so we've obviously got another 2 weeks to go, but we can just see the structure of that double top. So are we going to come any higher, or are we just going to sort of stall until maybe next month and then see some downside potential, or maybe even form a new higher low? But of course we make sort of the lower high, then we make a higher low, we're going to start to make a wedge. On the weekly, we can just see price, of course, breaking through this sort of trend line. We've then come down, retested, with just breaking through that trend line. We've come down to the EMA, we faked out of that, and then we're just sort of consolidating at the moment. So on the daily, you can see we're just in this triangle now. So we did have this wedge where we had a trend line here. Now I'm just looking more of sort of this triangle, because we've got sort of this resistance that's acting as quite strong, 100.94, and then we have this trend line here. You can see sort of low, higher low, higher low, and then we're just getting the, you could potentially say this is a slight lower high. So what we're looking for is sort of a break of this, come down to swing higher low, retrace, and then onto sort of the daily 50 EMA, and then reverse down to the downside, and then see dollar weakness. However, with a couple of pairs I'm looking at, I'm also looking at dollar strength. So for example, GBP USD, I'm looking at shorts. But then what you've got to understand is that some pairs might say the dollar could be weaker than the yen, but then the pound could be weaker than the dollar. So therefore it's quite an interesting perspective to have. But of course overall we are still bullish, because we are above that daily 50 EMA and the weekly. Yeah, just above that weekly there, as you can see. So on the 4 hour now, you can just see obviously that consolidation. We can just focus on this price here. We have got some liquidity. We failed to make any highs here, and now we're just sort of consolidating. So potentially looking still for that short to come on. I keep saying it. We're just going to be patient. It's not really showing us too much, the DXY at the moment, so we can't really use it as much as normal maybe. So of course, next one is gold. So gold now is being quite impulsive. It's currently breaking above the high. However, we know that we have to wait till the monthly close, as we said, got another 2 weeks. On the weekly, you can just see we are still maintaining below the Greystone Doji that we spoke about, obviously, in the last few videos. So we're still maintaining that pressure below. So therefore, for me, I'm not seeing any more bullish potential here unless we make a new high above that. We are also above the weekly 50 EMA. On the daily, you can just see that sort of trend line we had, or have, we broke through it. We've kind of formed this sort of triple top. Price just currently met that high, and it's starting to reverse on the 88% as well. So pretty deep retracement. Then maybe we'll just see this reverse from here, then test the daily 50 as the daily 50 becomes closer to price. Then on the 4 hour, we can just see this trend line that we have here. Price very impulsively broke up to make this new sort of high in this current trend, but obviously equaling the previous high. So based off of this, I'm still thinking we could be bearish, or potentially coming into a bearish phase. Obviously just saw on that 1750 or 1748 level. So that's gold. Next one is oil. I'm not going to spend so much time on this, because as I keep sort of saying, there's not really much to say. It's a bit hard to sort of look at oil at the moment. We've had a very, very impulsive month so far, but now we're just coming up to that $33 a barrel, so I'll be very interested to see how we react around this level. On the weekly, you can just see kind of symmetrical in that price action. Now we're coming back up, coming close to that weekly 50 EMA. Daily, we're just currently on the 50 EMA, or breaking through the 50 EMA. I know when we done the video last week, we was forming these spinning tops, and I was wondering if we was going to get some shorts. We have now seen price push up, and like I said, just looking for that 33 level, and then on the 4 hour you can see that trend line we had has been broken through. We've now met the previous high, so now we're going to go higher, or are we going to reverse from here? Now let's go into some of the pairs on our watch list. So the first one on my watch list is Australian dollar yen. So slightly smaller watch list than normally, so a short video which I'm sure you guys will appreciate. So on Australian dollar yen monthly, we are very impulsive to the downside, and we've retraced, and we're currently just forming a spinning top. So we've obviously equaled the high, and now we don't seem to come any higher. So on the weekly, you can just see a perfect sort of impulse and correction on that 71%. So we had that greystone doji, then we had this sort of hammer maybe in a sense, and now we're sort of forming a shooting, or we formed a shooting star last week off of that 71%. On the daily, sorry, on the weekly as well, we are just below that weekly 50 EMA, of course, because that's what we're looking for, the monthly, weekly, daily 50 EMA for direction or sort of overall trend in terms of the whole chart, and then on the sort of lower time frames to get that entry criteria. So then on the daily, we can just see we have this counter trend line, so using that sort of daily continuation or weekly continuation. So we're just looking for that continuation here, so we can just see that breakthrough, and now using that RBO style entry. So we broke through the counter trend line, broke through the 50 EMA, we're looking for now retrace, form a double top off the 71%, and now come to the downside. We are now breaking below the 4 hour, the daily 50 EMA as well. On the 4 hour, you can just see consolidation within a consolidation zone, which is sort of making not really any high highs, but also not really making any lower lows either. So kind of just concentrating the zone. What I want to see is a break of this support here, and then come down, make a new low, and then confirm that before we see a retracement. But it looks quite nice. Just looking for this to sort of continue now, and this sort of momentum coming into play. The Australian dollar does look like it could potentially reverse this week, especially when we look at the major pair of Australian dollar, US dollar. Of course, Aussie yen would be Australian dollar, US dollar, with the US dollar, Japanese yen. So next pair on our watch list is Australian dollar, US dollar, so the major. So monthly, you can just see we had that big bullish engulfing, and now we're just looking to have that sort of spinning top or that potential move back to the downside. We are below the monthly 50 EMA, so bearish. Weekly, really nice sort of sequence here. We've got this impulse, then this correction on the 88% from previous lower high to lower low. 88% making this lower high on the trend line, third touch, and obviously we do have this inverted hammer. So just sticking within that area. So we are also below the weekly 50 EMA. On the daily, we can just see we are currently above the 50 EMA, so creating this sort of double top sequence, and maybe this will give us the momentum and the push we need to go through off this 88% fib and the trend line. So we want to see a break through that, retracement to test the 4 hour daily 50 EMA, and then come to the downside. Onto the 4 hour, we can just see here that price is breaking through the 4 hour. It's now equal to previous low, so now we're hopefully going to see that extension to form a new low and then retrace and then come down to the downside. So as you can see, got my first swing high low is my TP1, my next swing high low is TP2, and then we have sort of this green grass area. So what I mean by this green grass area is we have these two sort of phases, kind of like green grass and real estate, we call it, a few of us call it. Some of the guys I work with, so Aaron, who you would have seen in the last video, he sort of gave the idea or the name to it. But basically, the idea is that when we look at the sort of this green grass, what we mean is it's an area where there's not a lot of price action, where it's very impulsive. So typically, it's not a zone we're looking for support resistance, not a zone where we're looking for consolidation. It's looking for a zone where we're going to get an impulsive phase. Whereas with consolidation zones, or say this real estate, it's where we've got loads of stuff in the way. So we've got all this price action in the way, so we expect some slowdown momentum, we expect this consolidation. So on the Friday, so we've just broken through, now retrace this area here, and actually this should have been in my active because I'm actually in this trade currently. So you can just see we then obviously retrace to the 4 hour 50 EMA with this free spinning tops, and you know when we get double or triple spinning top or more, it's a sign of reversal. And then we've had this big bearish move to the downside at the end of Friday. Friday was really impulsive as well. So next is we're going to go just quickly over CAD Swiss. I know I went through sort of the trading while I was in it, but just looking for them higher time frames as well. So monthly, not really much change, still within that liquidity area below the 50 EMA. Weekly, we've impulsively broke down, retraced to the 50%, and now we look to be breaking through that previous low and sustaining the pressure to the downside. We've got this head and shoulders, so left shoulder, head, right shoulder. Really nice movement. We've come down, retested the previous low, and now looks to be moving back to the downside and just rejecting that daily 50 EMA. And then of course the 4 hour we went through earlier, broke through the 4 hour, retraced the 50%, and now looking to continue to the downside for that big continuation move. So now we're going to go on to Euro Japanese Yen. This is one that I did take a loss on. It was quite unlucky as I got wicked out, but on the monthly, which is still within that 38.2 area, we haven't really broken that low yet, so we're just waiting for that below the 50 MA. On the weekly, you can just see we are now breaking below the liquidity area, so we could potentially be confirming that new low. So now we're just below that area, confirmed with this inverted hammer, breaking through that last major low, and now we're looking for this to continue to the downside. On the daily, you can just see we've got this impulse, correction to 61.8, then we had this near even star, but the bearish engulfing wasn't as big as the bullish engulfing. Then we rejected this last major low and with a successful retest. Then we looked to be pushing up, and now we've closed with a spin or sort of a doji. So now this is a nice candlestick formation to potentially move to the downside. And on the 4 hour, we can just see where I was looking for that entry. So I had this trend line, we broke through that with head and shoulders, quite a few pairs of head and shoulders, confirmed this new low, retraced, I then got into a trade off of here, we come down, I moved to sort of break even, actually I don't think I would have moved to break even yet, but we come back up, then I got wicked out from this wick here. I had a bit of a tight stop loss, and then because it was a Friday, and then we've now wicked through that, and now we've rejected that 50% and breaking back through the 4 hour 50 MA, so I'll be looking to get an entry in some way this week. Next is Euro US dollar, so our biggest major pair, highest volatility, or sorry, highest liquidity in the market. So monthly, we've obviously just still on that wedge at the moment. Weekly, and below that monthly 50 MA. Weekly, we are below the weekly 50 MA, and price is just sticking below that 1.1 level. So last week closing as a spinning top, so indecision, but below that weekly 50 MA. Daily, we can just see the head and shoulders. It's a bit clear on the 4 hour, but obviously broke out the wedge, then equals previous high, did not break through that, broke through the daily 50, then we retraced. We can just see obviously off that 38.2 and then reversed back to downside that shooting star. And then on the 4 hour, we can just see we've broken through head and shoulders, kind of here, head hit there. Don't really like as the left and right shoulder aren't really similar, but potentially some people may see it as that. And then we've now broke through the 4 hour 50, traced to the 50%, now looking to reverse it now side of a nice shooting star, which goes with the euro yen, because of course that's what he did. It was the 50% fake out of the 4 hour 50. Next on our watch list is pound Aussie, so we know how impulsive this can be. So monthly, we are now coming towards that monthly 50 MA. It's currently above, but we could potentially be testing it. Weekly, we have broken through the 50 MA. We have broken through the 50 MA. So what this means is that we've now closed below. We tested successfully with shooting star, and now we'll confirm there's more downside potential to come. Daily, you can see we've nearly fulfilled that daily fib, so the impulse correction to 50% got into there, and then we've come down to the downside with the minus 27 being in line with the previous high low. So we'd expect a retracement slightly, and then move to the downside. And then on the 4 hour, we can just see I'm sort of forecasting this move, so come down, make this new low, retrace for the 4 hour 50 just to kind of come out like this and start to slow down. Come to that area between the 50 and the 38.2, and then continue our move to the downside. Next is GBP USD. So as we know, another one that's been very, very impulsive this week. So monthly, we just got that even star, now carrying that momentum, and now in that liquidity area. Weekly, if I just zoom in, we can just see price is currently reversing from that 61.8 fib. So we can just see on the weekly, we're reversing from that 61.8 fib, that liquidity area. We had that sort of weekly 50 MA just above, and now we had a really, really impulsive week, as you can see, a shooting star, but a very large one, and bearish engulfing. Onto the daily. So on the daily, you can see that head and shoulders we spoke about last week, perfect break, retesting the neckline, and now moving to the downside. So what I'd expect is this to come down sort of here, retrace, and then we can look for a scaling. On the 4 hour, we can just see where that sort of target area is. If I just put the fibs back on in terms of the two target areas, because I normally use, for swing trades, I don't use the target areas from my 4 hour sort of fibs. So looking for sort of the 27 has now been broken, now looking for that 61.8, and then reverse to retrace to the previous high low, and then come to the downside even further. And we are a bit overextended from the 4 hour 50 as well, so that backs up the idea we could get a retracement soon. Next is New Zealand dollar, US dollar. So as you can see on the monthly, we're now looking to push down to downside, just like AUD, USD. Weekly, really nice price action here, so corrective for weeks. Then we've now got this big bearish engulfing. So now we want to look for a safe entry with a retracement. So below that weekly 50. On the daily, you can see how we double topped through that weekly 50, for that daily 50 MA. We've come down, and then this fib, so this fib is what I'm sort of forecasting. So I'm forecasting for it to come down to this low here, confirm a new low, then retraced to the trend line, and then 38.2 and the 50% before continuing to the downside. On the 4 hour, you can just see the 4 hour 50 as well would kind of smooth over for this, so probably be a bit closer than what this shows, but something like this, and potentially could even reverse or retrace from here, because we have got liquidity here. So I want to see a new low confirmed ideally, but this price action has been much more impulsive than it has been in previous weeks. And that's actually the end of our watch list, guys. So I hope that's obviously been helpful for you guys. I hope you learn a few things from there, and hopefully that guides you for next week. So that GJ was around 280 pips, so a really nice trade for me. And strangely enough, on the 1 hour, you can see we had a 60 pip end to Friday, which I actually closed a bit earlier than that, because on the FTMO, you do have to close your trades for the weekend to match real market conditions. So that is the end of the watch list. Just want to say, I'm thinking about doing a video on my FTMO journey and the process I had to go through, and of course what I'm looking to do in the future. So that's sort of the end of the video. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope to see you on the next one, guys. So have a great week, catch loads of pips, and I'll see you later.